All right, back in the basement again today to talk about this, the Cerberus Strength USA Power Bar. Now I say USA because Cerberus Strength is actually based out of Scotland. They do have a USA branch. This is one of what I would consider the holy trinity of powerlifting bars. So they have their power bar, which I have here. They also have a squat bar and a deadlift bar as well. So if you're into powerlifting, especially competing in powerlifting, these could be the bars for you. However, one of the most interesting things here about this bar is typically when you see a company who creates all three of those bars, especially bars for powerlifting, you don't typically have a competition style collar on the powerlifting bar. You know, the other ones that come to mind are like the Kabuki Power Bar, which is a little bit thicker, the Texas Power Bar, which is a hell of a lot thicker. You don't typically see these thin competition style collars like this Cerberus bar has when the company also has other dedicated powerlifting style bars. So let's talk about it overall. I'll start kind of from the front, work my way to the middle, let you know what I think about it. Is this potentially the bar for you? So on the end cap, you have Cerberus Strength, you have Power Bar, you have their logo, which really resonates with me, mostly because I've been playing Hades as of late. So you see Cerberus in that video game and it's on the end cap here. It's pretty plain overall, but again, it does serve the purpose of being there. It tells you what the bar is. Can't really complain. I don't really care too much about end caps. Coming to the actual sleeve itself, it is a bright zinc finish. It is a ribbed finish. Some people don't like ribbed sleeves. So if you don't like it ribbed, this may not be the bar for you. Personally speaking, I never really have a problem either way with smooth versus ribbed. I take what I can get, and this bar is fine. Now, as I mentioned, this bar does have competition style collars. However, one key thing to call out with this particular bar is it has the thinnest collars I have ever seen. They are the tiniest of the tiny, and that's saying a lot. I've seen some pretty small things in my life, but these are smaller than the Eleiko bar I have. They're smaller than the Rogue 20 kg power bar I have, the Lujanju power bar. Any power bar I had would have these thin competition sleeves. These are even smaller and they're tapered in. So good and bad about that. The good is that the weight's gonna be as close to possible to the center of where you're lifting, meaning this bar is going to be the stiffest it can be. The further you push the weights out, the sloppier the weight gets, the more flex on the bar. That's why deadlift bars are longer and thinner. This one, weights will be extremely close in, as close as they can get. That being said though, if you have a wide rack like I do, the Rogue rack, 43 inches, that's going to put the weights really close to the uprights, depending on where the bar is centered or racked. If you have roller cups like I do, you can offset that a little bit by changing it. But if you don't, just know that you're probably going to hit the uprights when you walk out a squat. You could potentially even hit them on a bench, which is a negative at first, but I think in the long run might be a positive because it will really force you to clean up those dirty walkouts and dirty handoffs, which we all hate, let's be honest. So that's just one thing to be aware of. But if you want to brag to your friends about having the smallest thing in the world when it comes to something, this is probably the thing that you want to be bragging about being small and not something else. So from there, you have the typical bronze bushings that you see in a lot of bars. The spin on this, it's fine. It's a power bar. Who really cares at the end of the day? It spins, it's smooth. You shouldn't have any issues with that. From there, you have the shaft, which again is pretty standard when it comes to a lot of power bars, especially competition style. So it's knurled, which I'll talk about in a second. It has powerlifting knurl ring marks only. It has center knurl, and this is a black zinc finish. So black zinc shaft, bright zinc sleeves. Really cool thing to call out is on the ring marks itself, they are red, so it matches their black and red theme. I think they do this on all their bars. It doesn't add any functionality, but it does make the bar stand out, look different, and is a cool feature, which a lot of people probably could do, but they just don't. So props to Cerberus for doing that, to making it a little bit different in a crowded market of powerlifting barbells that are black zinc and bright zinc. Now, when it comes to the knurling itself, what I would say is that it is decent. And for me, if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, decent is actually a good thing. So decent for a power bar for me is meaning that it's above a 5 out of 10. So I'd put this at like a 6 out of 10 in terms of aggressiveness. It actually really reminds me of the Rogue Ohio Power Bar in black zinc, a very similar feel, a very similar look. I'll try to flash some images on the screen so you can compare them to yourself. But it feels really similar to that, which is a good thing because to me, the Ohio Power Bar is my most recommended bar for most people powerlifting, because it kind of checks all the boxes and does everything really well without breaking the bank. And this knurl feels very similar. If you get this, I don't think you'll say it's not aggressive enough or it's too passive, but you might say, I wish it was more aggressive. So it could definitely be more aggressive, but I don't think anyone will be disappointed in how it feels, as it's going to be sufficient for the powerlifting movements and feel very good. Again, considering that this is black zinc, which is typically not a finish I love because it does dull the feel of the bar just a little bit. But the knurling on this, I would say, is good. The only call out I have on the knurling itself is when you start to get towards the termination points, it does kind of lose some of that aggressiveness. It tends to flatten out a little bit where they started to slow down that knurling tool, so you can feel it and see it. But we're talking about a very small area, which probably isn't going to impact you that much. You might feel it a little bit on deadlifts if you have a very narrow grip here, but otherwise you probably would never notice that the knurling does that. So overall, very good. Now, when you take a look at the specs too, again, it lines up to what you'd expect of a power bar. The length is there. You actually get slightly longer loadable sleeves because that collar is so thin on there. 210K tensile strength, max load rating of 1,500 pounds. Again, all things that you would expect. Now, where this bar becomes interesting is the price point. So it retails for $330, which again, if I were to compare this to any bar, it would be the Rogue Ohio Power Bar 20 kg version because it looks similar, it feels similar, it is used in a similar fashion. That bar retails for $350, so $20 difference. But for me in Rhode Island, after shipping and tax and whatever else is charged, at the end of the day, this bar here would cost me $360. The Rogue Ohio Power Bar 20 kg version would cost me $405 about. So it's about a $40 price difference between the two. And for some, that's a significant amount of money. I think it's a pretty decent amount to at least consider this if you're also looking at the Rogue bar. But I do know there's a lot of people out there that just don't like Rogue or don't want to buy the same thing that everybody else buys. So I think this would be a very appealing option in that regard because, again, at the end of the day, it's good build quality, good specs, good feel, and does really well in actual operation and usability. And again, they also offer some unique things like squat bars and deadlift bars as well. So end of the day, Cerberus Strength Power Bar, if you're interested, I do think it is a good power bar overall, depending on what your own preferences are. If you want to see me review more stuff from Cerberus Strength, like their squat bar or deadlift bar, let me know in the comment section below. Or if there's any questions that I can answer about this particular bar, let me know. But in the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and stay big.